The following is an Operation Podcast production.
Post-COVID, we're in a world where people are paying close attention to their health and their individual health outcomes and the health of their children and asking questions.
Getting into nutrition and public health in schools is SB 14. Act 463 is limiting artificial dyes, additives, sweeteners in school meals, and even adds ingredient transparency like QR codes, seed oil disclosures.
I've kind of found myself in a position as chairman of health and welfare to respond and to perhaps do something about and support this kind of growing movement, the Mocha movement, if you will, the healthy food, healthy living, healthy lifestyle. All right, State Senator Patrick McMath here from Louisiana, and welcome to Ever Forward Radio.
Welcome, everybody, back to Ever Forward Radio. You're in for a real treat today because I don't have an author, an influencer, health, wellness, scientific advisor, just community leader that I feel embodies the mantra of living a life ever forward. But I do have somebody, well, you could say community leader for sure. My first time ever sitting down with a politician on the show. And so with that, welcome, Senator McMath. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. 4-letter word. Politician. Yeah.
So please give us a quick little, high and dry intro of you, position, where you herald from these days, and current kind of just core mission.
So one of the hats I wear, and I think the one that we're mostly going to discuss today, is I'm a state senator from Louisiana. I represent the 11th Senate District. It's an area north of New Orleans, Covington, Mandeville. Probably more importantly than that, father. Husband, father of 4 little kids, 11, 9, 7, and 6. Been in the Senate for 6 years now. I chair the Senate Health and Welfare Committee. Prior to that, I was a city councilman in the city of Covington, and just public service has been always a passion of mine. Post-COVID, we're in a world where people are paying close attention to their health and their individual health outcomes and the health of their children and asking questions. And so I've kind of found myself in a position as chairman of health and welfare to respond and to perhaps do something about and support this kind of growing movement, the Mocha movement, if you will, the healthy food, healthy living, healthy lifestyle. And so have authored some significant legislation this past session, Senate Bill 14, and would love to talk about it with you.
Absolutely, we're going to get into SB 14 specifically, but I'm just curious. Someone like yourself, were you always prioritizing focus on with your political career, healthcare reform, healthcare legislature? If not, what got you into it? And why is it so important to you?
Yeah, so it's actually a funny story. No, the answer is health and education scared the hell out of me. I didn't know anything about them. I ran initially on kind of an infrastructure platform, bringing dollars back to the district. We were in an area that has grown pretty rapidly post Katrina, 20 years ago, and a lot of it was, I was focused on solving traffic problems.
Important problem.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. By the way, LA is hard.
Yeah, you could definitely put that in the mental health bucket. So you were already kind of in the healthcare reform. You just didn't realize it was through traffic.
That's right. That's right. And in fact, I told. So the way the committees and assignments work and chairmanships work is that the Senate president selects which committees you're going to serve on and who's going to chair those committees. And I'm a freshman senator coming in, 35 years old, really don't know what I'm doing at all. And I tell them which committees I want to serve on. Transportation was one, Rev and FIS, which controls the dollars for funding those projects. And he said, which ones do you not want to serve on? I said, do not put me on education and do not put me on health and welfare. I did because I didn't know anything about it, right? And that wasn't really why I was there. He put me on health and welfare and he said, look, I think you're going to thank me one of these days. You're built for this committee. And he was 100% correct. Very quickly, it became my favorite committee to serve on. I was not the chairman my first term, but I was on the committee. And, the legislature, you it's mostly policy that you're debating, right? And you don't have the opportunity that often to effectuate have an immediate impact on a constituent or someone in a positive way, hopefully, like you would on a municipal level. Like before I was in the Senate, I served on the Covington City Council, and was able to help Mrs. Smith's trash get picked up, or Miss Betty's her ditch cleared out, right?
Things that are appreciated, but we're not talking major health promotion initiatives.
But helpful nonetheless. And you see them in the grocery store later that day, and they say, "Thank you so much," or they say, "How come you never called me back?" And it was actually a great way to learn how to be accountable to your constituency, local municipal government. But in the legislature, we don't have that opportunity that often. You have that on health and welfare, because we're dealing with very personal issues to people, whether it be helping someone get a wheelchair, right, that they couldn't get, or having the ability to make a phone call to a hospital to get somebody in that needs some care fairly quickly. And I just fell in love with the committee, and ended up 4 years later chairing it and wanting to chair it. And it was kind of what I was angling for, and the new Senate president put me in this position, and I feel like I'm duty bound to make some sort of impact when it comes to individuals' health. Like Louisiana, we're not known for our healthy lifestyle, right? Mardi Gras and fried foods and to go.
That's where I had my bachelor party, so yeah.
It
wasn't a wellness retreat.
That's right. That's right. And so it's kind of ironic that we passed what RFK, who came down for the bill signing, said was the most comprehensive MAHA bill this past year. And we did it right here in Louisiana, where we're typically 48th, 49th when it comes to our individual health outcomes. And I think it sends a message that we're serious about tackling this health crisis that we face right now. 9 out of 10 top causes of death are from chronic disease, from lifestyle,
i.e. preventable.
Preventable, right? And we're the greatest country in the world, the richest country in the world, but we're ranked, in the 30s when it comes to 37th, right? And that's unacceptable, particularly for the amount of money that we spend every year on healthcare. And so, yeah, I think you've seen this shift in mindset of post-COVID again. People they're paying attention more. They're taking accountability and ownership in their individual health, and there's a desire to treat the root cause, perhaps for the first time, and not the symptoms. And a lot of that starts with food, and that was reflective in what we passed.
I'm curious, with someone like yourself, with your personal accord, who did not get into politics, did not get into wellness, healthcare reform specifically in this political channel, but it was kind of thrust upon you. I guess the question there is, well, does he really care? If a politician is put into a position to spearhead or at least contribute to an initiative that was quite literally not his choice, how much can they really care? And I guess kind of caveat to that is, I'm sure you can only speak to your experience, but what was thrust upon you as to, hey, these are the initiatives that you will be working on, and what were the kind of general benchmarks, or hey, these are the things that we need someone like you to work on, and how did you even get traction in that?
Yeah, well, great question. While I might not have started with an interest in healthcare, 6 years ago, this is a deeply personal issue for me, because about 2 years ago, my wife was, best friend, mother of 4, she was having some health issues, and could never really figure out what was going on. Well,
when you say health issues, can you give us a light picture?
Yeah, like constantly sick, constantly inflamed, constantly gut issues, headaches, just
always battling something.
There's something.
Okay.
And did a host of tests and went to a couple different doctors, and finally there was a physician friend of ours who is a primary care physician that left a very large healthcare system where she had 3,000 patients and just was sick of pushing paper essentially and not helping make people healthy. She went out on her own and opened up a concierge practice where she went down to just 300 patients, and her goals and her patients' goals, were finally aligned, which isn't
go figure.
Right, go figure. Right, her interest is to keep people out of her office, right, and keep them healthy, and so. And you're seeing this trend across the country, and it's great, and it's
my old background before.
Right.
When I started the show, I was in concierge medicine as a wellness director and working right by with our CMO, and I'm pretty sure our sweet spot was like 200 patients per doctor, and that was the most change I'd ever seen in any kind of healthcare system.
Sure, and I hope that continues. Right, we got to figure out a way as a state and on the federal level to support that that type of industry. But the doctor, said, "Listen, tell me what you're eating," and very quickly she started to, we did a lot of research, read a lot of books, listened to a lot of podcasts, and kind of like discovered this thing that you've been living, right, and that a lot of people,
health thing,
this health thing,
wellness
right?
thing,
paying attention to reading ingredients, and all the way down to you're in good company when people start talking about baking their own bread, right? It's like a secret handshake within this community, and
sourdough squad.
Yeah, right. We need T-shirts, and just learned a lot about this, and read the first book that really where the light bulb went off. It was a book called End of Cravings. And very interesting, it talks about Italy and the United States in 1900. And at that time, both of those countries were dealing with a regional type of a disease. And the name escapes me of the disease, but it's essentially like a diet caused by malnutrition. And
rickets?
No, it wasn't rickets. No. It almost very similar to like scurvy in a way. And both of the countries had to deal with this. And think in Italy, it was in northern Italy, and in the United States, it was actually in the southeast where I'm from. This was like the sharecropper days where people were eating like biscuits and dried pork and like molasses.
Right? I'm from Southwest Virginia. I know all about Southern cuisine. Yeah,
right. You got that. And so in Italy, they dealt with it by importing different types of cheeses, fruits. Recommending communal like bread baking, adding certain yeasts and things, and it over time they curved the issue and ultimately in maybe 10 or 15 years eradicated it.
Just with that shift in nutrition.
Yeah, right, and diet.
Nutritional recommendations.
In the United States, we solved it within a year instantly by enriching our flour. And it was where our paths at the time, Italy and the United States had very similar obesity rates, very similar chronic disease rates. And now Italy is still consistent with where they were in 1900. In the United States, America, we're, over 75% of our population is obese or overweight.
75%?
Yeah, over 70. Yeah. It's
overweight or obese.
That's right. It's unacceptable. It's crazy. It's a crisis, right? And so the author of this book made the suggestion that this is where our paths diverge, where in the United States, we solved this instantly. We solved it with science and just simply by enriching our flour, and didn't enrich it just in that region, by the way, like across the country.
And when we say enriching, we're talking putting back in basically most, if not all, of the vitamins, minerals, essential nutritional profile ingredients or items that we strip away because of the processing of that ingredient.
Yeah,
right?
correct. Right. So you're adding certain things like, and that in and of
Vitamins,
itself,
minerals.
right? That in and of itself is not unhealthy, but in our minds, we as Americans said, okay, well we'll just modify our foods, which kickstarted this desire, it made it acceptable to end up where we are today, and that's where over 70% of our diet is of the average American. I feel like you might be a little different. Is comprised of ultra processed foods, which that these foods that we're consuming at a very high level didn't exist 100 years ago.
No.
And we've been around for several hundred thousands of years as a species, and our body doesn't know how to process a Dorito, right? Or some sort of high fructose corn syrup. The tongue tells the brain, hey, stomach, get ready for a strawberry, and a strawberry doesn't show up. It short circuits our system, right?
Was this the case for your wife? Was she kind of finding through this nutritional dissection, was she really on a lot more eating a lot more processed foods, or just kind of surprised by some food items that were more processed or had or did not have things that she needed?
We did a lot of shopping in the aisles, right? And not so much on the outside.
The perimeter,
Yeah. And very quickly, our pantry transformed into what it is today. And it's very limited, processed foods. We eat a lot of, game meat and paying attention to what we're drinking and just.
What happened with your wife? What did she see? What did she feel? What changes happened?
Headaches went away, swelling went away, probably dropped, some weight.
Yeah.
She's in the best shape she's ever been in her life. And our kids, like, we're also starting to pay attention to the fact that, we probably shouldn't be sending our kids to school after having a couple of donuts. You see the effect that has on them from just when they get back home. They're tired. They didn't have a very productive day. They're cranky, right?
So it was a top-down change in your household, not just for her health, but
all the way,
everybody.
All the way. And we got some really great eaters. We start the day with farm-raised scrambled eggs and avocados and sourdough toast. And they come back and there's their ability to take in, information is dramatically improved. It's kind of crazy, but it makes so much sense.
It's crazy, but so obvious at the same time.
Yes, it's so obvious. And
so she was getting these amazing health benefit changes, her and the whole family.
Yeah.
So this was kind of the moment where you go, okay, I want to carry this more into what I'm doing downtown kind of thing.
That's right. It was right around the time, with that book, I started listening to Casey and Calamean's Good Energy. I saw the copy.
Casey's a personal friend.
Yeah.
She's been on the show 3-4 times now.
Yep. She's awesome. She's her and her brother are definitely responsible for, whether they know it or not, what's this movement and what ultimately ended up in Senate Bill 14. And it was around that same time, I think, the Tucker Carlson podcast where they were on.
Yeah, that was earlier this year.
Yeah, or it was in
late last year.
It was late. Yeah, it was. I think it was right around. It was during the
late 2024, maybe.
It was during the presidential campaign too. Because correct me if I'm wrong. You're friends with them. Both of them were sort of advising both RFK and Trump on health policy, and so all of this just sort of kind of came together right around the same time that I became chairman of Health and Welfare. And just had this aha moment. Man, I need to, we're fortunate that we were able to solve this problem. Wouldn't it be great if at the very least I can help educate the rest of, the Louisiana and tell the story that we told and try to fit that into some sort of legislation.
At that time when you kind of had this newfound sense of, purpose and excitement for it, and, also getting these amazing personal results with your own household wellness reform, what stood out to you then, now that you have this heightened sense of awareness, like I said, what stood out to you most as being the key necessarily, where did your community need help the most? What were the key items that you then kind of began to work on? Let's, stay with Louisiana for right now.
That ultimately ended up in the bill. Is that where you're?
Well, just before we get to the bill, just now that you're aware of these things and what actual change can happen when people just become more informed of what they're eating, and then making different choices for their own personal wellness goals, healthcare goals. What did you then do next as like was it your first kind of flagship initiative, or what stood out, or what were the main things needed by your community, and how did you embark upon them?
Yeah. Well, obviously, just general education and figuring out what, as a legislator, like what is in my boundary of influence, and a lot of that has to do with schools, and figured that if we can, who doesn't want to support healthier eating in schools? I mean, and it's not a new idea, by the way. In fact, First Lady Michelle Obama originally had this initiative, I believe, in President Obama's first term. So, again, I'm not taking any credit for this. This thought has been around for a while. I think that movement or her initiative sort of shifted to exercise and away from food for whatever reason.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. But it was kind of a no-brainer. It's like, all right, if we can put healthier foods in schools, we can also teach kids what it means to eat healthy and why it's important. And it's kind of, the education is the silver bullet sort of thought. And then they're going to go home and they're going to tell their parents that, hey, this is what we had today. And oh, by the way, we learned a little bit about farming. In fact, some of the vegetables that we had on our plate, we grew, right? And that's a really cool thing to learn how, to teach children.
They get really excited about it.
They get super excited about it when they eat when they're eating lettuce they pulled from the recess yard, right? Like that's awesome. And then it just sort of other things kind of kept popping up. As I was having conversations with, I've discovered something called the Mocha Moms. These are very engaged post-COVID. This is a population that was not political pre-COVID, post-COVID. They absolutely are. You get a lot of conversation from them around healthy eating, exercise, certainly vaccines pop into their discussion. But I started discovering these groups of very engaged mothers exist out there, and they're coming to me with other ideas for the bill. Like we tackled or addressed seed oils and learned about hey, maybe we need to be educating people on the possible effects of this, and also found out that physicians, 90% of med schools don't require a nutrition course.
Oh, it's an elective.
It's crazy. That's crazy.
Still, it's an elective. Yeah.
Yes, that is insane. And what I wanted to do was initially require, those courses to be taught in med schools. Come to find out, the legislature doesn't have that jurisdiction. So, but we do have some say in continuing education. And so, that was another component of this bill. And it just sort of kept kind of building upon itself. A lot of the ideas came from the book Good Energy. Had a conversation with Callie when I dropped the bill, and that was a pretty neat experience too. Just given the fact that a lot of the stuff that I was working on was an inspiration from them. So
I'm curious. It seems like what I'm hearing in your story, and I don't very heavily get involved in politics. But it does seem like, especially when we're looking at public health initiatives, really any major initiative, one, that just gets the public's attention, and two, that actually gets any kind of traction, we're in like the children's world.
Yeah.
I'm curious, is that just from the political side of things, do initiatives focusing on children have more probability of actually happening? Or is it that's actually the best place to go, because let's be honest, most adults are set in our ways.
Yeah.
So if we can educate and inform and empower the next generation, is that only ever the best place to start when we're looking at public health reform?
Yeah, the answer is all the above. It's easier to convince a fellow legislator. Look, there's 39 state senators in Louisiana. There's 105 House members. It's no one can do anything by themselves in that building. And on top of that, you have the governor. And so you've got to build consensus. And a very an easier way to do that is to involve kids, because everyone wants to protect children, right? No one's going to
I don't think anyone would disagree with that.
Right, debate that with you. It's actually very similar as a veteran yourself. If you do something that's geared towards veterans, people are like, yes, oh, whatever, let's do it.
Usually, right?
We're going to help. Yeah, usually. And so, yeah, the answer to your question is it's strategically, you start with wanting to, to protect the kids and make their lifestyles healthier. And you just, because again, like who's going to come and debate that? Yeah,
I wouldn't disagree. And also now as a new dad, it's even more top. I mean, my son's not even in school. He won't be for years, but it's just even more apparent and more important to me of whatever I'm doing in my household and whatever I care about outside of my household, in my world and the world, I'm doing now for more of a cause for influencing him.
Yeah, amen,
so
man.
Becoming more aware of what I'm eating and drinking, because he's super aware, and what I'm bringing into the home and what he's eating. And we're already a pretty healthy household, but yeah, even for someone like myself and my wife, who it is very top of mind, once you bring children into the fold, it is typically all for them.
That's a game changer.
Yeah,
it's. I've also found that we have some wonderful people that are in the legislature in Louisiana. We really do, and young, old, black, white, Democrat, Republican. For the most part, people are there for the right reasons, and that's to make a positive impact and do right for their district and for the state. I have found there's a almost like the younger legislators that have a young family, there seems to be more urgency in what the changes that we're trying to make, because we're not, our kids we go home to them and we want them to stay home and to be in Louisiana and have opportunity and have healthy, a healthy environment to grow up in. And we see them every day. Like that's the reason that I ultimately wanted to serve, is to try to make my state better for them. It sounds cheesy, but that is the God's honest truth.
I mean, you're also a parent, so I feel like it's a very intrinsically, it's an intrinsic motivator, I think, for you as well, which no one would fault you for wanting to carry over to public service. I would think. Speaking of, we've talked about it a little bit, mentioned this SB 14, and, speaking of children, this getting into nutrition and public health in schools, this SB 14 Act 463 is limiting artificial dyes, additives, sweeteners in school meals, and even adds ingredient transparency like QR codes, seed oil disclosures. What was your biggest motivator, besides maybe what we kind of talked about? What was your biggest motivator, this push for SB 14, especially its focus on student nutrition?
Yeah. Again, personal for us with Jane and kind of her health, my wife, and the journey that we went on to kind of hit the reset button on how we view food, right? The primary motivator. But again, the timing of it, and life is very interesting, right? Timing is everything. All of this sort of took place around the same time that this MAHA, the Make America Healthy Again movement, really got, mainstream. There were some Senate hearings that took place with Casey and Callie Means and a bunch of other folks that are in that world, that was really unprecedented, in that legislators, U.S. senators, were willing to go out on a limb and have a discussion that big food and big pharma, very powerful groups.
Yeah, I think like half the attendees of that event I saw have been former guests on the show, or like these are people that a lot of the public looks to on social media and books and just media in general. That was unprecedented for me.
It was amazing,
Yeah.
right? And that made it okay to have the discussions. And so, and these are, Louisiana is not the only state that's done this. In fact, funny enough, in Louisiana, we really prioritize Mardi Gras over just about everything else.
As you should.
Yeah. And because of that, our legislative session, we wait until Mardi Gras ends before we start. It's funny, but it's also, I think it says a lot about what our priorities are.
Well, I mean, it's a huge part of New Orleans' history,
Huge.
Louisiana's history and culture.
Culture in Louisiana is at the top.
And
right?
I'm sure a prime driver for the economy.
Huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. So, rightfully so, we should prioritize that. But I say that to say most other states in this country, they kick off their sessions in January and February. And so we're usually like 2 or 3 months behind everybody else. Now, there's some good in that, and in that you can kind of see what other states are doing and the debates that they're having and the issues that they're bringing up, and see where the conversations are going, right? And that a lot of that was happening with these MAHA bills, with these nutrition bills, with healthy eating, getting dye. Like West Virginia had a bill that prohibited dyes in foods, and Texas had a kind of an omnibus bill. Utah, there's tons of states. In fact, I think there was like 32 states that had some form of kind of MAHA type bill. And so as that was all happening, I'm paying attention to those debates, and I'm kind of cherry picking the initiatives that those states were trying to pass, and I'm putting it, I'm compiling it in one sort of omnibus bill, and so the motivation was already there. You're kind of capturing this movement that's taking place, that I have a personal story that I can relate to because of what was happening in our household. And everything just kind of came together in a way. This was also around the time where Secretary Kennedy was up for confirmation. So there's just tons of this.
A lot of awareness for this general health wellness push. I'm curious, you all kind of, it sounds like you had just in general a little bit of a strategic advantage because it's just the timing of when you typically go in to do the work. Or how much really does what other states, what they're doing in terms of their legislation and what they're bringing up as prime initiatives, how much of that matters state to state in terms of what you all decide? Or I guess a better way to put it is, how much weight does it hold with these other states of what they're doing in terms of what Louisiana chooses to focus on? Yeah. Does it need to be this cohesive push in order for things to matter, or is it really kind of siloed because what Texas does is different from Louisiana or West Virginia? Yeah. Or was it just, hey, these topics are really getting a lot of attention right now, and if we ever wanted to do anything with them, now's the time, so we have to prioritize them?
So that always happens, right? If there's a movement afoot, if there's something popular that's taking place, or there's a priority that you're seeing pushed in other states, it all kind of blends down. It's actually one of the beautiful things about our system in this country is there's 50 kind of experiments taking place all at once.
That's a good point. Yeah,
and you can pick and choose like what's working and what's not working, right? Now, a lot of that has to do with socioeconomic, like Utah and Louisiana's population are very different. And so you're mindful of that. But if Utah is doing something really, really well, and there's a way to implement that in Louisiana and kind of import that knowledge, it's beneficial. We often in Louisiana in the South, we pay close attention to the good things that like Texas and Florida and Tennessee do, because those are states that are experiencing a lot of growth and in migration They've got good tax policy, right? So you do most of the time you pay attention to that.
Yeah, you can probably better gauge of what probably is going to work.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. That's right.
Which has to be a determining factor in what you all choose to work on or not at the policy side.
And as a legislator too, it's easier when you're presenting a bill because you got to go and you got to sell this thing to your colleagues. You're like, hey, by the way, like
our neighboring states, are seeing similar results, or we could hope to have similar results based upon boom, boom, boom.
And the sell becomes easier.
Okay.
Right? This bill is actually different in a way because the primary goal with all of this, and not just Louisiana, but across the country, is to force the food companies to the table in DC and make the changes that they know that they need to make, that they've been resistant on making for decades, by removing certain dyes and certain ingredients that are making us sick. It's not complicated, right? But they didn't have the motivation to do that because they weren't being forced to. Like no one was at the state level, at the federal level. When this new administration came in and they're in this sort of tidal wave of this movement sort of overtook the country, it has forced them to the table. They don't want to go and try to abide by 50 different rules and regulations.
Right. Yeah.
Right. You physically cannot have Fruit Loops made in 50 states, right? Abiding by 50 different, patchwork of regulations. And Secretary Kennedy and President Trump and Casey and Callie, when I had a conversation with Callie, I said, look, I'm concerned that this isn't consistent, because I'm thinking like old mindset, you need to be consistent with what our states are doing. I said, this isn't really consistent with what Texas is doing right now. And he says, don't worry about that. Like the goal should be to go cause chaos. Like go out and pass this stuff and just cause chaos, because it's helping us. It's giving us air cover in DC to negotiate with these companies. And it works. It's working right now. I mean, you're seeing PepsiCo is announcing the removal of certain ingredients, the phasing out of certain ingredients in some of their products. Coca-Cola is talking about making a push by eliminating artificial sweeteners and going back to, real cane sugar. Not to say that Coke's going to be healthy for you, but that's healthier.
Less worse.
Less worse.
Yeah.
But it's cool to kind of see that strategy.
Yeah.
One, being a part of it, and also two, watching it unfold. I mean, where the FDA has announced the elimination of a lot of artificial dyes, or the phasing out of them over the next several years, and we're getting to a point where our food is actually similar to what they're eating in Europe and Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah, I was gonna say this stuff for me, and again, just my little amount of information that I know of it. I feel like this really wouldn't be that much of a difficult thing for these organizations
do
like
it already.
Pepsi and Kellogg's and Post, for these people to do, because they have to abide by these unique rules in other countries. I mean, if they just adopted the same policies, for example, like in Europe, most European countries don't allow, they'll allow processed foods, but the laundry list of ingredients that have been not only just like, hey, don't, but actually banned, or else you're out of the country kind of thing, is wild. So the fact that these companies can't just follow the same rules over here means to me one thing, and that's just that America doesn't care as much about it, and there's got to be some ulterior motive for continuing to allow it, despite the hard evidence we see of benefits in other countries that we respect and work with in a lot of other policies, by not having it in there.
Yeah, that's money. That's what it typically comes down to. I mean, I read something the other day that Fruit Loops, I don't know if it was 10 years ago or 15 years ago, they removed some of their artificial dyes, and it made their cereal less colorful, and sales dropped. And so they went back to making them, bright, beautiful, not Fruit Loops, right? And it's profit driven. And there's nothing, that's the system we live in this country, right? And there's nothing, there's good and bad when it comes to a capitalist system where profit drives things. The bad being that we end up with some pretty unhealthy stuff, but the good being the market dictates. Consumers dictate what they're going to. So and the consumer mindset has shifted, and it will continue to shift towards wanting healthier products once people become aware of the effects that these can have on your body, right? And so they're going to change because they're going to want to continue to sell their stuff, right? And so if we, the consumer, make these demands, and we have some support from state legislators and from the federal government, we're going to end up with a healthier environment. But Chase, you bring up a really good point. I didn't fully appreciate the fact that Heinz ketchup in France or Germany is completely different than Heinz ketchup. Same label, except when you flip it over on the backside and you read a laundry list of words you can't pronounce with high fructose corn syrup added to that, right? And in Europe you don't have these things, and so they know how to do it. They make this stuff already. It should be an easy
maintain
switch.
Profits
That's
abroad
right.
as well.
That's right.
I don't think Heinz is hurting in France.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Heinz, but I don't know.
I think they actually dip their French fries in mayo.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I love France, but I can't get on board with that. Yeah. So how was the line drawn in your experience for which additives or sweeteners to restrict, and how will this new QR code transparency really work in practice out in the field?
Yeah, great question. The beauty of the bill was the ultimate goal was just to cause chaos, right? And so while we took, I think on the ingredient piece, the QR code, there was something like 50 some odd ingredients that were on this list. We pulled from lists where these products are banned, or at the very least there's warning labels on them in Europe. We pulled some stuff from Texas, some stuff from West Virginia, and really, admittedly, it's not like there's not one definitive list that exists out there that all science can agree is right. These are the really bad products. I mean, we know what things are absolutely terrible for us. But there's not a this is the gold standard list of things that are causing us to be sick. A lot of the times, these food companies, they'll pay for the studies themselves to have their doctors or their scientists say that, no, this stuff's healthy. So there's also reports out there that suggest, that this thing that we're trying to remove is actually healthy, and they'll say, well, what about this report?
Yeah, or just not that bad.
Not that bad.
I kind of feel like, sorry to interrupt, but I just feel like this is such an important point. There, in my opinion, there are items. There is an objective list of things that we just know. I won't even go as far as saying are bad for you, because I personally, I struggle with saying that about more or less anything. But objectively, when we look at things, they have no need to be in food. They have no need to be put into food items, especially when we're looking at our schools and children. They have no need in being in there. They do not directly enhance the nutritional value, the bioavailability, the delivery mechanism, really in any capacity. It is purely for, the Fruit Loops example, purely for shock and awe and wow and sales. So I think if we kind of looked more at that, I believe we could get to a place, we could get to a list of, again, these aren't bad for you, but there's no need for them in these foodstuffs.
I like looking at it that way. That's a good way to put it, is what is the actual purpose of this product being in this food, other than to sell more of the product?
Right, like high fructose corn syrup.
Yeah.
Our body doesn't need it, other than like maybe enhancing satiety and sweetness and shelf life, but again, that's economics. That's not nutrition. So I think we've lost sight of what the actual goal of food is.
That's a great point. Yeah, there's a lot of the things that the ingredients that are in these foods, and you hit on it, is to short circuit the system. If you eat a steak, regular old protein, we being around for hundreds of thousands of years, our body knows what to do with that, and it tells us at some point, hey, we're full, stop eating. It's not going to taste as good as it once did when we first started, right? That's our satiation. A lot of this stuff that's like you said, it's designed to short circuit that.
Yeah.
So where you can't stop eating that bag of Pringles and you want more, and so you go out and you buy more.
Hyper palatable.
Yeah.
We're no longer satiated, nowhere near as quickly as we need to be. Yep. Even some things are proven, like endocrine disruptors, hormone disruptors. We literally begin to confuse the body with the innate signaling system that is in place for things like hunger cues, full cues, leptin, ghrelin, and just it becomes a very slippery slope very quickly.
Right. They design food that is so light and dissolves basically in your mouth without having to chew, because they've discovered that the more you chew, the faster you get satiated, the faster you get full. And so it's not even just the taste.
Yeah.
It's like the actual physical makeup of this stuff. And that again didn't exist like 100 years ago. Our rule in our house, and look, by the way, in no way, this is still a new journey for me. You've been in this world much longer than I have, probably two years in, right? And so absolutely not perfect. I could do much better.
I don't think we ever get perfect with it. Yeah.
Then thank you.
Cool. Well, also, we change. Times they are changing, but also, you literally are not the same person you were 2 years ago. I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago. Our cellular turnover, I forget this exact reference, but I think we go through literally, and every cell in our body, our bones, everything, every cell tissue, we're different. I think by every 2 or 3 years. I could be butchering this, but everything changes. Our needs change, our wants change, what works for us changes, what doesn't work for us changes. So it's a constant evolution. It's a frequent evolution.
There's something comforting about that, though, right? In a way that it's almost like a reptile that sheds its skin and kind of can start back over again. The body is such an amazing instrument in that it has such a powerful ability to self-heal.
When you give it the right environment, homeostasis is its most natural inclination.
Yeah, amen.
Yeah.
And a lot of that starts with what we're putting into our bodies.
Yeah.
So our kind of rule in our house, and fortunately my kids are really good eaters. They're not picky. We've gotten them, and they never really were just, chicken finger or chicken nugget folks. They like deer. They like buffalo. They like bison. And so we try to stick to those things, which, by the way, I know people are going to say, yeah, this guy's, feeding his kid bison, and that's really expensive. If you look at the caloric value of something, so right now with inflation, I think what a number one at McDonald's it's expensive. It's $7 or something like that. It's
a value?
Yeah.
Combo pack value meal thing? Yeah.
It's not again, not being the perfect person in the world, I snuck off and got a McDonald's breakfast a couple weeks ago, and was shocked at how expensive it was. I hadn't been in a very long time. And you can buy 2 pounds of red beans at the store back home in Louisiana for $2. That's a lot of food. You can get a rotisserie chicken for the same price, actually might be less, than a value meal at a fast food joint.
I did it last night. My wife and I do this all the time. Yeah. $7.99.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah, whole chicken lasts us for a couple days.
I was going to say, and that's not one
for
meal.
2 people.
You keep eating on that.
And then we make bone broth with it. Yeah. With the leftovers. Yeah.
Right. And I think the more that people are doing what you guys already do and what we've started to do in our family, markets again will take note and adjust, and you're going to see those prices for those, beef tallow. People say, that some people would suggest that's healthier to cook in than canola oil. I happen to agree with that. Beef tallow is expensive, but that's because the market isn't there for people wanting to go out and buy beef tallow. It is now. You're starting to see this growing demand, and it's a supply. It's an economics issue, right? And so more people are going to be starting making beef tallow. It's going to be more readily available. The price will come down. It's basic economics, and that's I don't know. It's really it's reassuring to me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Kind of getting back to the political side of things. You've mentioned this word chaos a couple times, and I don't know how many people are picking up on that. But to hear a politician say the point is chaos,
Yeah.
can kind of maybe stir the pot a little bit. What do you mean by that? I have to imagine, introducing this bill and a lot of other initiatives that you and your team are working on, and a lot of other states now. You hope that what you're working on becomes change. You hope that the bill passes. You hope that it becomes law, and you hope that you actually see its effects, but also the downstream effects of just like systemic change.
Yeah.
But sometimes that doesn't happen, but you do make enough of a ripple for other changes to happen. Is that what we're talking about
That's
here?
what we're talking
How can we have good chaos?
Yeah, it's funny. Some of the folks on my team, when I first said that in an interview, I think I gave an interview on our local.
I'm sure your advisor is like, don't say that.
Yeah, he was like, please stop saying
chaos.
Yes. And it's like, well, but that's what we're trying to do here. And I'm not gonna. It is what it is. And if we can't be honest and genuine with the people that elect us, like we're wasting our time. Like, just stop. I think in today's day and age, people just they just want honesty and authenticity, and that should be like a really good, easy thing for us to provide. And so
one would think.
Yeah, I guess. But it was funny though. They were like, you shouldn't say that. Don't say that on the mic. But it is true. Like the whole, for decades and decades, these companies refused to make the changes that they needed to make because they didn't have to. And when 30 some odd legislatures across this country at once, kind of sort of out of nowhere from a lawmaker standpoint, not that folks have been aware of this for years and years, the emphasis on healthy ingredients and healthy foods, but really this came out of nowhere from a lawmaker standpoint. This big push, it was chaos. It really was. It was like this patchwork of laws that are being passed that it's impossible for them to abide by. So they go run to Washington and say, we can't navigate this chaos. Please help us come up with the changes that you want us to make, and we'll work together and make them.
Okay.
And it's not the normal route, for sure. But in this case, you're talking about an industry that has been in existence and has been one of the primary causes of our terrible health in this country. They've been making a lot of money, and they needed some motivation to change what had been working for them, but not for the American people, not for the people of Louisiana. And so thus the chaos ensued, right?
Well, let's face it, money, right? There is chaos happening. There's a disruption happening. There is a distraction happening, but hopefully intentional chaos, intentional distraction. And, we have people like yourself and, Casey and Kelly Means and so many others, at the forefront of just finally having voices like this heard. And right now it's, I think kind of being quantified just as chaos and noise, but, there are people with actual initiatives, and marching orders basically. So time will tell. But the big Goliath that we're all up against are these giant multi-billion-dollar, if not trillion, now, Amazon, no shade to Amazon, but, these billion-dollar plus organizations that they're not going to give up their money, right? So change can happen, I hope, and I'm sure, for the better when it comes to nutrition and just awareness and education and labels and schools. But these organizations are not going to give up their money, right? So what do you think is really going to happen from the economic standpoint? Because they've got to make it up somewhere.
Yeah.
So if they're giving up something, they got to get it from somewhere else. Where's the money of all this?
That is, I'm sure that's important for some people to consider and to take into account. It's really not what I and what a lot of people are worried about,
Really?
Yeah, it's not.
You're not worried about an organization such as PepsiCo, maybe potentially losing hundreds of millions, potentially billions of dollars because of these changes in the short term, at least.
Yeah.
And that doesn't worry you all?
If I have to, and maybe I should just speak for myself and not
Sure.
But I think there are a lot of folks around this country that would agree with me. If I have to choose between PepsiCo's bottom line and their stock value and like healthier Americans, like I'm gonna go with the healthy Americans all day long.
But then I see some people even make the argument of, okay, let's say, well, if they let's say there's a Red 40 department at PepsiCo. Just insert any giant corporation here. And in order to get on board with these initiatives, they cut that department. I mean, now we're talking job loss.
Yeah.
And probably people in the same socioeconomic status that are eating these foods with Red 40. So now we might have just saved them from, these nutritional woes, but now dad doesn't have a job.
Sure. Yeah, I would be remiss to not take into account the trillions and trillions of dollars that we spend, that the taxpayer in this country spends on healthcare every year. And so, yes, while a private company or a publicly traded company might not have, the net profits that they once had, we still spend as taxpayers a lot of money combating these horrific health outcomes that we have. This situation, this crisis. There's a health crisis in this country.
Absolutely.
And so, what's our priority? Like, what are we as a country, in the state of Louisiana, or in the country, the United States? Like, what needs to be our priority? Is it always profits over like the health, individual health of our children? If we really care and we really want to make a difference and be healthier, and I've got to believe that Americans we don't want to be obese. Like, no one wants to do that. Right? Secretary Kennedy's got a great saying, a healthy person has 1,000 dreams, a sick person has one, and that's to be healthy. And so, are we going to be serious about what our priorities are in this country? And I think the answer to that is yes. And we're waking up to this, and it's a great thing. It should be celebrated. Are there going to be consequences where certain companies aren't going to make as much money as they do? I'll tell you something else. If we have a healthier population, we've got less people on pharmaceutical drugs. Like, those companies might lose out too. But do we really want to be profiting off of our population being and remaining sick? To me, that's an easy an easy question. The answer should be absolutely not.
And I'm in that bucket with you.
Yeah.
I mean, I wholeheartedly agree that I think if everyone, especially, countrywide, if the initiative, the goal was to help as many people as possible, as consistently as possible, adults, and especially with the next generation, focus on things that get them and keep them well, get them to homeostasis, coupled with a balanced, affordable, accessible healthcare system that actually freaking works instead of just a sick care system. That's like utopia. But, if I'm hearing you correctly, and I think anyone would be remiss to say that, with any kind of reform aren't going to be consequences, aren't going to be other forms of losses and short-term, collateral damage, if you will. And, I hate to downplay anyone's situation. I'm not saying anyone's job loss is collateral damage for the greater good, but, is that kind of the mindset we have to have for the big picture of America, of humans to be what we truly can be, or maybe even some would argue what we used to be from a homeostasis standpoint, longevity standpoint, metabolic standpoint, mental, physical, spiritual, emotional standpoint. Is that what it's going to have to take? Are these the sacrifices necessary to keep us around and to keep us not only just present, but thriving?
Yeah. Yeah. And well put. I think the answer is absolutely yes. At least it is for me. There was with this bill, I had countless meetings, a lot of them. In fact, it probably was over 100. And I'm talking about, meeting with folks that, doctors not wanting to do the continuing education, and why should we have to do that? Food, grocery stores saying, what is this going to mean for our current inventory, and who's going to be in charge of the repackaging? To like Coca-Cola, for example.
So many logistics involved.
There was a lot.
Yeah,
I mean, it was a lot. Big change typically requires that, though, right? And meaningful change. And that's what we were trying to do. Coca-Cola, for example, they pointed out another component of this bill originally was prohibiting the sale of soda for SNAP benefit providers for the supplemental nutritional program.
Mm-hmm. That's correct me if I'm wrong. That's like the new food stamps.
Yes,
right? Correctly. Okay,
right.
Yeah.
We changed the name.
Food assistance. Yeah,
that's right. The supplemental nutrition something program. I used to forgive me, forgot, drew in a blank there. But
I love how Coke is on the SNAP program.
Well, okay. Also, I didn't know this, but there's no nutritional guidelines for the SNAP program, for the nutritional supplemental program, which that's about to change, by the way. But that's kind of wild. So
very wild.
So, part of this bill was going to prohibit the sale of soda for SNAP recipients. And Coca-Cola came to me, and I understand why. And I get it. Their job is to sell Coca-Cola and their products. They said, this is really going to hurt us. It's going to hurt our bottom line. Fun fact: 17 to like 22% of their sales came from SNAP.
No way.
Recipients.
Almost a quarter
That's
of their sales.
Huge number. And my response was, I'm fully aware that this is going to affect your bottom line.
But what's a quarter of? I mean, what does Coke make in a year?
In Louisiana, I don't remember what the numbers were.
They've got to be in the billions, right?
It was a lot of money.
Okay, so let's just, for argument's sake, let's say a quarter of $1 billion. Coke, you're going to be fine. Right?
Yeah.
Is this my own naivete? Kind of, I don't. We're going to have job loss. We're going to have a shift in economies. Okay.
Yeah. But it's a huge number. Like, that's a lot of sales. My argument to them was, well, I think you'll be able to sell a lot more water now, right? Or make products that don't have these high levels of sugar. I mean, we put in there, it was like 5% or 5 grams or less. You can still be eligible for. Now that actually ended up coming out of the bill because the governor Landry decided that he wanted to do this through executive order. And so,
meaning what?
Meaning that he could require the Department of Child and Family Services in Louisiana to petition the federal authorities to grant Louisiana this waiver, this change for their SNAP program. So, and he can do that through executive order. So ultimately, that didn't end up being in the bill. But we've already implemented that program in Louisiana. And so, come January, 15th of 2026, you will no longer be able to buy, sugary drinks with your SNAP card. But we're trying to add into that, like, rotisserie chicken. So we're replacing something that is not nutritious. Like, no one's going to argue that Pepsi is a healthy drink for you, but then we're trying to replace it with a rotisserie chicken or some sort of already manufactured, whole protein. And that's what we should be doing. It's common sense.
Are you getting? That was a great example. Thank you for sharing. Are you getting any other significant pushback from? And if you want to share their organization or company, by all means, go ahead. But what is the biggest pushback you are seeing from these conglomerate organizations, these corporations, on this initiative, these changes you're trying to get made?
Yeah. Well, no.
And also, sorry, are they bigger?
Yeah.
Are they proving to be big enough to really push back and not get the change that you all want?
Well, fortunately, I'm not getting any more pushback because we passed the bill overwhelmingly. In fact, it received not one no vote. It was bipartisan.
Amazing.
It was awesome. Yeah. I mean, and a lot of that, I got to mention this group, and I mentioned to him before, the Mocha Moms. That group was so engaged and they filled the Capitol the day that we had.
Moms get shit done.
They do, man. And like, don't get in the way of Mama Bear. I saw it, and it was an amazing sight. The day that we ran the bill in my committee in Senate Health and Welfare, we had to have the committee that we're in is one of the larger committees. It's called the Henkel Room, and it was full. And so we actually had to open another overflow room, and then another one, and then another one.
Wow.
And at one point, the Senate president calls me. He goes, "What are y'all doing down there?" Because he has to like allow security to like open the rooms.
Yeah.
And I said, everyone's here for the bill. And 90% of those people were there, and probably 99% were there in support of the bill. And he said, "Look, I've been here for a while. We've never had to have 3 overflow rooms in one day on one issue," and it was awesome. And
honestly, when you think about it, I mean, there should be that turnout for every bill, for everything that matters. It's just wild that it's only taking this now to get this amount of turnout and support. Is kind of mind blowing when you think about that.
Yeah.
Why don't other topics matter as much?
That's a good question. It's a frustrating one for us at times because you have a lack of engagement, and in a democracy, it's hard work, right, to maintain this republic, and you need to have an educated, engaged population to do that. In a democracy, you get the government you deserve. And I think people can only handle like one issue. Mm-hmm. I think that's changing. Mm-hmm. I think post-COVID, that's changing. I think the curtain was pulled back in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. And we are now asking questions that we didn't ask before, and not just nutrition. Yeah. It's education. It's tax policy. It's a lot of people are now the pendulum's swinging back, which is great, and that should be celebrated. Yeah. But it's still it's some people just they've got lives to live, and they've got families to raise and support, and they've got
people that care
also
have all that as well.
Yeah.
It's not either or. It's this.
That's
and.
Right.
And I think in order for somebody to care about something, for me to want to care about something, I have to believe that, one, I can actually make a difference about this, or two, someone else can. And if there's anything in between, I think that's where people fall through the cracks, and that's where we're not seeing people show up with this amount of turnout. So I feel like with this movement, I think it's a little bit of both. We finally have platforms and voices, whether it's the Mocha Moms or just, authors, podcasters, influencers, scientists, all these people now finally, I think, who have cared long enough. And now we're in a place and time in American culture and government where like maybe me talking about it or talking about it more and more publicly is actually going to move the needle. But then also with people like yourself, I care enough, I can maybe make a difference. Mm-hmm. And we have people like yourself in these bills and these initiatives that are actually collectively making a change as well. So I can make a change. You can make a change. Therefore, we all can as well.
Yeah. Chase, I got to tell you, and thank you. Like a lot of what it starts with what you guys do here, and what others are doing on other podcasts. It makes me feel, it renews my faith in this country and in like humans that people have interest in, and clearly they have interest in these long format discussions where it's not the 20-second news clip where you're getting the dopamine hit by the death scroll of minute information. Yeah. It's real substantive conversations. And that people are so interested in that because, 10 years ago, right, I think heads of these major news networks would laugh at what someone's going to listen to somebody talk for 3 hours. Like, no way.
BC, before COVID,
right.
No one really took podcasts seriously.
Yeah.
There was like us, like if you know kind of community. Mm-hmm. But I mean, the spotlight that COVID put on this type of media, this platform, in my opinion, has been great so give it like 6 years ago, I don't think people would have most people would have gone, what is a podcast? Not, oh, I'm listening to it, I'm on one, I'm using it. People like yourself are actually engaging with these platforms and hosts to actually make a difference as part of your campaign, as part of the initiative.
Well, a lot of the information that I got and was able to educate, and really being introduced to people that are experts in this field, because I'm absolutely not one, but I know enough to where I can talk to that person and reach out to them.
Yeah.
It has been a game changer, and I don't think we're having this conversation about this huge health movement without the fact that you guys been having this conversation for a few years. And so, and I think the trend is going to continue to grow. Folks like myself, legislators in other states, will continue to sort of listen and pay attention.
I hope so.
To what the conversations that folks like you were having.
I'm just, maybe there's going to come a day where there's, in the political cabinet, there's a, secretary of podcast or something right. It cracks me up because, coming from DC, even living in DC for like 4 years, I was never really deep into the political situation, which made small talk out kind of interesting sometimes. But, even there, I would tell people, oh, I do a podcast, and they would go, what? What is this? But also I think being in an environment now out here, it's so much more well received, and I'm just so glad that I'm able to just keep doing this thing that I love, and to further educate myself, and to put myself in the room with experts or people even just one step further along in their wellness journey, and also people like yourself making a splash, which is why I started the show to begin with. I started as a way to supplement my healthcare job, working with patients every day. I realized that even the information and people and politics that I had access to weren't enough. I needed to go digging more. I owed it to myself and to my patients to do more, and ultimately to share more. And that hasn't changed since 8 years now.
Well, man, don't stop, Jason. Keep going.
Ever forward, right?
We need all the help we can get.
So speaking of, I want to get into my final question here with you in just a minute, but I have a few just quick rapid fire questions. I would love to just, kind of ask you, and, kind of whatever comes top of mind or you think is most important, we'll go with. If you had to pick just one, prevention or treatment, where should America invest more?
Prevention. That's easy. I mean, you treat the cause, not the symptom. It's like kind of wild that that's not where we're at right now with our healthcare system. We're not. We absolutely, it is built and is made to treat the symptoms and profit off of those symptoms, and not have a true healthcare. You said it earlier. We have a sick care system. We don't have a healthcare system.
What's one thing every American family could do today to improve their health?
Educate yourselves. Read books. Listen to podcasts. I am like I said earlier, our pantry is completely different from where we were just 2 years ago. And the improvements that I've seen just within our family alone is you can feel it, you can see it, right? It's real, and we didn't get there just by luck. I mean, we taught ourselves what's healthy, and for us individually, and what we should be staying away from, and what we should be focusing around. So then that started with education.
What's the most overlooked public health issue we're not talking about enough that maybe we haven't hit on already?
Chronic disease. I mean, inflammation. How about that? I think if we can cure or we can address chronic inflammation, that bleeds down into so many other problems. Let's focus on that as a country.
If you could wave a wand, and a lot of what you're doing kind of is a magic wand, but if you could wave a wand right now and solve one public health issue in the next decade, so give yourself kind of the next 10 years to work on it, what would it be and why?
Wow. That's, I feel that's a tough one.
What's something you think would take a decade to actually make happen?
I would be curious to know how possible it is to eradicate cancer. And again, I'm in no way a scientist or a doctor and will never claim to be, but there's something that is, adding fuel to the fire when it comes to cancer rates. And what is that? I'll give you another one too. I need to finish.
Please. Yeah.
The autism rates that we're seeing in this country is completely unacceptable from where we were in the early 80s to where we are now. Not to get into like the conspiracy theories here, but that's a problem. Mm-hmm. And something is causing it. Mm-hmm. It's not because we've started diagnosing it differently.
That's kind of the argument now. I see a lot of people are bringing up is, now we're just actually better at diagnosing it. So of course the numbers go up versus how many actual cases of autism are there.
1 in 1,500 to 1 in 32 though is not a diagnostic deal.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. Well, Patrick, Senator McMath, excuse me. This has been a real treat for me. Like I said, not my usual guest on the show.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having a sleazy politician. Appreciate it.
No, I appreciate it because it's kind of gotten me, out of my comfort zone a little bit, out of my usual prep zone, and just gotten me, like I was sharing with you earlier, kind of back to my roots a little bit. With, I went to grad school, shout out American University back in D.C., and I went to their grad school program for masters in public health promotion. Excuse me. It's been a long day. And so I really believed in that being an important part of my future by making sure that I was staying aware of and abreast of and implementing large scale health initiatives, what works for large communities, kind of going more over that just large-scale approach, because the more people know about these basic fundamental things, in my opinion, that move the needle for health, that's how we have a better world. Mm-hmm. And so I haven't really had people on over the 8 years now of the show to really talk about it from that vantage point of the political change necessary, the public health change that's necessary. So it's been great. It's been great. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you for having us. This is keep up the good work, man. This is. You're providing folks like myself some real inspiration. So keep it up.
Well, whatever we can do to support, let me know. Where can my audience go to learn more about this bill and other initiatives you're working on for public health and U.S. healthcare? Yeah,
the easiest way would be to Google, or my kids call it search it up now.
Is that what the kids are saying?
That's what the kids are saying.
Search it up.
Search it up. Yeah. Search up Louisiana Senate Bill 14. There's tons of great articles about it, and it'll kind of lead you down the rabbit hole as to what other states are doing. I'm not a huge social media guy. I do have a Twitter handle at McMathPat on X, and I say Twitter. See, I don't even know.
Yeah, it's Twitter. Right. It's Twitter. Come on.
But I just. And there's a lot of good stuff out there. And so I hope at the very least, maybe whether it's this or whether what we did back in Louisiana with the bill, it'll lead people to educating themselves on the importance of what they're putting in their body. So thank you again.
My pleasure. So my final question, last and final question is, I ask at the end of pretty much every interview so that we have had a chance to kind of understand each other more, and my audience has had a chance to really understand what every guest brings to the table in terms of the collective well-being. But there are so many different verticals of wellness and well-being: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. Now here we are, political. So my goal is to have people on to kind of highlight an area that can help that area move forward, and then collectively move the needle in our entire life, and to live a life ever forward, I say. So those two words, what do they mean to you, ever forward?
Progress. Yeah, keep going, ever forward, keep moving. Darkness to light, right? That should be especially in today's age, and what's kind of taking place across this country. We need to move out of the darkness and into the light, and I think you do that by moving ever forward.
There's never a right or a wrong answer, I always say. So thank you for your interpretation, and my pleasure. Thank you so
you.
much.
Appreciate it.